To order them, let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. Bill, you want to do that?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go ahead and call the roll. Mrs. Shumway.
Present.
Mr. Warndorf. Present. Mr. Gertz.
How come I'm third?
Let's start over again.
You can be first next time.
I'm the new kid on the block, but I have the pleasure of presenting the Volunteer of the Month recognition of our outstanding volunteer, Jane Paul.
They can't
I'll
hear you.
speak a little louder. I'll be glad to do that. Jane has dedicated her energy to many areas of the Park District. At Frozen Fest, she tirelessly spent the event in the back room running the blue popcorn maker so all could enjoy the tasty treat, and I can only hope that your hands aren't still a dyed blue. At our Learn to Snowshoe program, she tried snowshoeing and enjoyed it so much she bought her own shoes and has been volunteering for snowshoeing programs ever since. She volunteered until last summer with her late husband, Bill. Jane is also an active Scopes and School program volunteer, assisting with spring bird walks, helping with special nature programs, and is a wonderful asset to seasonal events year-round. Jane, won't you please come and accept our gratitude? Great to meet you, and please present this to you. And the commissioners and I want to I'm sorry.
You have a minute if you'd like to go ahead.
Yes, she's also a participant in Geauga Walkers, and she can tell you a little bit more about that.
I'm a very active participant in Geauga Walkers, just came from there. We meet every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, different park, and our walks are in the newsletter or in the senior news.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're looking at minutes from the February 10th board meeting. Does anybody have any questions in regards to the minutes, Bill?
No. Also move we accept them.
Okay. I would second that motion.
Mr. Gertz.
Yes.
Mrs. Shumway.
Yes.
Mr. Warndorf.
Abstain.
Good afternoon.
It's not working. Yeah.
At all?
I don't know. Try and see.
It's pretty quiet in the room now.
That's working. There we go.
Okay, we have three funds. Many of you have heard me say that multiple times, so we'll begin. The general fund began the month with $5,993.17. Had expenditures of $454,944.94. Revenue of $19,716.83, ending the month with $5,557,835.06. Not working all the time. The Land Improvement Fund began the month with $3,208,334.79. Had expenditures of $28,512.14. Revenue of $967.95, ending the month with $3,187.90.60. And the Retirement Reserve Fund began with $82,442.69. Had a whopping $3.55 in investment income, and ended the month with $82,446.24. Are there any questions on any of the items within the financial statement presented this month?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment, because when I read the financials, it says $470 for camping, and I called Mr. Oros and asked, do we need to give an award for somebody that camped out in the parks last month? But so that you all know, those are camping fees paid in advance. No one camped, okay?
We did have a few.
We did have some.
Okay.
What do they call it? The Croton bedroll?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. We also brought in 2,520 utilities, so I questioned the same thing when I saw that much in utilities, but we opened up the utilities for the 15-year, and we had credit card transactions. So this was the credit card transaction portion from when it was opened earlier in January that is now being put into our accounts. So that is why you saw those larger numbers this month. Okay. If there are no questions, I'm going to move forward to the pre-approvals. I'll explain a little bit about pre-approvals just because this is Mr. Warner's first time. The purchase pre-approval process is basically a check and balance that allows the board a check against the budget that's already been pre-approved. The budget was approved back in February and was submitted to our budget commission and approved there. That was the second round. The first round was approved back in June and submitted in July to the budget commission for the county auditor. This is an additional check. Everything over $500 we put before the board and basically ask for a pre-approval and request that they take a look at it and make sure that it is still something they want to move forward with at this time. There are some notable items in this month. The total pre-approval request is $321,013.84. Some of the ones that I wanted to make note of and bring to light for you were a $32,606.88 for Classic Ford for a 2015 Ford Transit van. That is for our naturalist department. That would be to transport not only the students in the summer camps, but will also be used as an additional transport van for some of the nature arts festivals and a shuttle type vehicle that we could use for additional nature arts festivals and items like that. That is the lowest bid we received. We do plan on in the future going ahead and putting some art on that to make it more of a showpiece that states in the Geauga Park District.
How many people does it carry?
That can fit 15 people. Another item that I wanted to point out is we do have some items on here that we're purchasing for the Chip Henry summer camps, quite a few. The summer camps are quite popular. We do receive funding from the Geauga Park District Foundation, and we are already in talks with the CASA. We are having a meeting with them, and we are having a meeting with the Geauga Job and Family Services as well, coming up here in March. I wanted to make you aware of. But letting you know that some of these expenses are for those upcoming summer camps. We've also just recently had interviews for summer camp interns. Another one I wanted to point out was the Lamar Texas Limited Partnership billboard advertising. This is something new. We've never done billboard advertising before. This will be our first year doing it. The reason why we're putting this before you, you've actually already pre-approved $1,000 back in January. This is not $2,100 new. This is $2,100 total, so it's $1,100 new. This would be May of this year, and then basically in July of next year. And unfortunately, we couldn't get the slot we wanted to get for this year. We were hoping that we could do a caveman crawl piece, and we were not able to do that in the location we wanted, so we're going to try again and do that for next year. So we needed to reserve it this year.
Okay.
And that's why the increase. And the other one that we'll be doing this year is going to be the Connect campaign. So we'll be doing one this year with the Connect campaign, one for next year on the caveman crawl piece. It is within our budgeted amount, though. We did have a total budget that would fit within. So I just wanted to point that out for you. We do have quite a few items for NRM in here. We have an Argo Frontier 8x8 amphibious vehicle that will be used for controlled burns, for invasive species control, and it is considered to be a low impact vehicle. So that is used by other organizations like Cleveland Metro Parks and Western Reserve Land Conservancy, so they do feel it is time that we should go ahead and get one too to help our Natural Resource Management Department out. The other one,
accessible also to the ranger staff if necessary?
our rangers have a vehicle. Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, typically in the past, the rangers have a Polaris that our NRM guys use. So between the two vehicles, this would be more directly for NRM, but in the past, departments have utilized vehicles if need be on a as-used basis. So.
The other item for the NRM that I wanted to point out was the Truax, the no-till vast row. That is for meadow restoration to be done in-house so that there is better soil contact. About $16,201.
Okay, is that strictly meadow restoration for throwing, or are they going to be able to use it?
No, we would utilize it throughout the park district. We have a few projects for next year out at Observatory Park where we're going to do some meadow restoration. So that's where we anticipate using it with our own in-house.
Okay.
And the last one that I wanted to point out is the playground, which is the $99,000 one. And I'm actually just going to give you some copies of what Matt had submitted to us for that. It's been approved, as I mentioned previously, in the budget, but I did want you to see at least the design of what they had submitted to Matt. So this is what they returned to us, and I'm reporting it to you.
Thanks.
One person wants to see the portable version of it. I have the colorful version. Everybody else is in black and white. And just so everyone's aware, what they're looking at is the Headwaters Playground.
And this has the one turtle, but so in addition to this, we're going to do the turtle signage? Okay. Did you all have any questions about that?
I think that the price is exorbitant.
Sorry, Bill, that's what it is. That's what it costs. I do have one other question.
Okay.
The binoculars for Nature Scopes print source,
Yes.
is that just printing or is it purchasing of binoculars?
Purchasing and printing.
Okay.
And
that's the entire Nature Scopes program for the year?
yes, that is for the 15-16 school year.
Okay.
And if you haven't heard yet, we do now have all 100% participation in Geauga County schools. So that is very exciting. Our Nature Scope program has 100% participation.
And just so that you all know, that's $18,593 for those binoculars.
It's very expensive.
It's a phenomenal program. Okay.
All right, so I am requesting.
I just want to see what it was.
Pre-approval.
I am requesting
Yeah.
pre-approval. Yep.
Did you have any questions?
For $321,013.84.
I so move that we grant the pre-approval request in the amount of $321,013.84.
I would second that motion.
Mrs. Shumway?
Vote yes.
She did. She said. Mr. Gertz? No. Mr. Orndorff?
Yes.
Okay, the last item for me is the presentation of the vouchers. Before you have some vouchers. These are items that represent what has already been paid for the month of February. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. If not, we just go ahead and we request that these receive a motion just to accept into the minutes.
Motion to accept into the minutes for the general fund vouchers through 2815.
I would second that motion.
Mr. Gertz? Mrs. Shumway?
Vote yes.
Mr. Orndorff?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, and Matt will come forward if there are any questions, but we're asking you to, as part of the Headwaters Park improvements, we solicit bids over $50,000. Unfortunately, we only had one bidder for Headwaters Park, so we're asking to rebid that contract. That's a recommendation of our design engineering firm, Peninsula Architects. We've got a couple of amenities there that we would like to have our operations crew do. Some of the camping amenities, a couple lean-tos and some tent pads and a double restroom. But for the sake of remodeling the shelter over there and closing the shelter, some of the things that you've already seen in the form of the plans, we would like to rebid it. So, Matt, do you have anything to add? Any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, so the one bid we received too was also incomplete. But from talking to the consultants, a lot of the costs that they were seeing from their conversations with the contractors who purchased plans and didn't bid on the project was based on the camping that we had included in there. The costs were very high from what they were figuring. We actually did some camping out there in-house with the construction crew in 2010. So it sounds like from talking to the consultants, if we remove the camping and the restroom and do that in-house with our construction crew, that would keep the cost more in line for the shelter with what they were anticipating.
So we're going to do double restrooms in-house?
Yes, and we're actually already doing a similar style restroom replacement out at Swine Creek, the lakeside restroom, which construction crew is already doing this spring. They did one last year, so we're really confident that they can handle that. So based on what we're seeing, that by removing those two items, the budget would still remain for the overall project, but doing them in-house, we would actually be able to keep the shelter in line with what we described.
Do we have a new estimate of cost?
So by removing the camping and the restrooms out of the original budget, that would be roughly $64,000, and that would leave $336,000 for the shelter, which includes some electrical upgrades and demolition of the existing building.
Mr. Andre, did you have the opportunity to review the bid that was submitted?
Yes.
Do you have any comments from the board?
No, I felt that you could appropriately go forward so long as you don't exceed that original 10% estimate.
Oh wait, this is Headwaters.
Oh,
that was for
That's
Headwaters. We would just be rebidding.
We're rebidding it.
Yeah, we would need to.
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted to know if you had seen the one bid that was submitted that was indicated as incomplete.
No.
Oh no, I didn't. I didn't see that.
So, okay. You will help us by reviewing the bids when they're resubmitted?
If asked to, I'd be happy to.
I would certainly like to have your advice in connection with the bids when they're resubmitted.
Okay, great.
So you're asking for us to make a motion to go ahead and let them rebid?
The board
To rebid.
Second.
Mrs. Shumway?
Vote yes.
Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mr. Orndorff?
Yes.
The next in line is the Throwing Meadows construction project. We did receive 2 bids for this project. And Matt is making the recommendation to go ahead and award the contract to Hummel Construction, but non-perform 2 items, because those 2 items for the boardwalk and observation deck and the garden, they were too high. So we would like to also do those projects in-house. So then Matt can add.
And I was going to say, those 2 items on the bid, the price of the boardwalk was almost $1,000 per linear foot. Typically, we see boardwalks closer to $250 to $400 a linear foot. And the other item is the demonstration garden, which at Throwing Meadows, we have a garden we did in-house. We had estimated about $7,500 to do that. The bids came in at $21,000 and $25,000. We feel that in-house we could do that with our NRM department and stay within that $7,500 budget. Hence, that's why the recommendation to remove, non-perform those 2 items. The shelter and the expansion of the parking lot were in line with what the engineers had estimated those costs to be at.
Is it anticipated that the demonstration garden will once again have prairie plants?
Yeah, basically what the demonstration garden is we're going to match the existing plantings on the left side, just kind of create that balance as we come up to the shelter. Right now it's only on the left side, so basically the 2 plots will kind of match each other. And
is park staff going to work on weeding, or do we have a volunteer group who would be willing to do that?
Typically in the past, I believe we've done that with our staff. We could always look at if there's volunteers that would like to help with that.
Well, there have been occasions when it's gotten a little weedy.
Okay.
And so it would be nice if we could get some folks who are interested in prairie plants to help us out with that. They might be more attentive to care of the plants. And the other thing is that sometimes people have gotten in there and stomped all around inside that confined area and sort of just did serious damage to the intent.
No, those are
An observation.
Brad, do you have a crew that basically you use for things like that?
Yeah, our maintenance crew takes care of the grounds, which includes weeding, and we have worked with the master gardeners on different projects to help us weed and do things like that. Because
That's good. I'd like to see that group expanded, because I think there's a lot of things that we put out for bids that you guys can handle.
My only question was, with this, you've already got headwaters that you're going to be doing campsites, tent pads, double restroom. Is Ops going to be doing this, or is this going to be Steve George?
So this would be, Brett and I have talked, and with their APO, we feel like we could still do these projects. Construction crew would be doing the majority of them, but if we needed, there are some things that we could pull from the operations, maintenance crews to help with. But Brett and I discussed it, and we felt pretty comfortable that we can still get this done.
Okay. So you're looking for a motion
to award the contract to Home Construction in the amount of $279,500. Yes.
Now, to do the projects in-house, though, we would look for
At
an additional $20,000, which Michelle put together.
For an additional $20,000.
That's resolution 1515.
That's correct.
So, you want a motion to accept resolution 1515? I'll go ahead and second that motion.
Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Shumway?
Yes.
Mr. Warndorf?
Yes.
Okay, then we still need a motion to accept Phase 2 improvements contract award to Hummel Construction, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Would anyone care to make that motion? I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the Hummel Construction for Phase 2 of Throwing Meadows.
In the amount of $279,500.
Correct. Correct.
Second.
Mrs. Shumway?
Vote yes.
Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mr. Warndorf?
Yes.
And if I may, just so that 1515 gets read into the minutes, so that it's understood. 1515, what it was a $20,000 increase to the budget into contract projects, so that the internal project can be done by architecture.
Thank you.
I missed who made the motion and seconded for 1515.
I made the motion for 1515.
Who seconded?
And just to clarify, that means that we're eliminating 21.5 for the prep and landscape garden and the 39.5 for the boardwalk.
Yes,
That's
yes,
correct.
yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
And then Mr. Orndorff, the first piece we kind of was the monthly update for the whole division, so I think that was the first piece of information. If you have any questions on.
I'm all set.
Okay, so the next is Geauga Park District Foundation, and Dave is not here, is he? Rich? Nobody's here?
No.
Okay, so just let me read a letter from the Park District in so that we have resolution number 1415. The Geauga Park District Foundation has requested confirmation that they are permitted to utilize Geauga Park District's name and logo. So the letter will read to the Geauga Park District Foundation, specifically Mr. David Chu. This letter confirms that the Geauga Park District Foundation has permission to utilize both the Geauga Park District name and logo for the purpose, now I have lost my original letter. This is the unrealized one. For the purpose of promoting park events and raising funds for Geauga Park District. These permissions will expire on December 31st, 2015 and be revisited annually. We are happy to have the foundation as a valuable partner in supporting our mission. We look forward to working with you on the NASA Observatory Station, Nature Scopes, Chip Henry Institute, and a variety of park and nature-inspired initiatives both now and in the future. Thank you for your steadfast support. Sincerely, Mary Ruth Shumway, President of the Park Board. So that would be a motion to accept Resolution 1415, presenting the foundation with that.
Mr. Ande, do you have any reservations about this granting this permission?
No.
Any comments?
No, I thought this is an appropriate use of it. Frankly, it sort of confirms what the history of it has been in recent years. But given our desire to protect the name and logo, I think it's smart to get on this specific permission. So I don't have a reservation, Jeff.
Thank you. I still move that we send the letter as you recited it.
Mrs. Shumway?
Vote yes.
Mr. Orndorff?
Yes.
Mr. Gertz? Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Next in your packet is a memo in regards to our ODOT biennium fund. Every other year through the state budget, we receive funds specific to parks for road and parking lot improvements. These funds can also be utilized for any public access, roads, parking lots, meaning paint for crosswalks, for signage, things of that nature. We typically use them for asphalt improvements, road improvements. We receive gravel to put in where we have gravel parking lots and roads. So ODOT, along with Iowa Parks and Recreation Association, they require a resolution prior to the biennium going in place, which, as you know, for ODOT is mid-year. So they simply require biennium. This is a resolution for the biennium. This is past practice. We've done it a number of years. So.
Okay, and the 2014-15 was used for Metzenbach, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you don't have slated where we're going to use it in the future. We're just going to use it somewhere.
We have a list of projects where we need asphalt work. What we typically do is see how much money is going to be available and identify, like Metzenbaum, we're able to do a whole park entry drive and parking lot. We tend to look at the projects we have and which one makes the most sense.
Okay.
Have we exhausted the funds that we previously received?
We have approximately, I think, $4,000 roughly left from what we utilized last year. That will just get carried forward into the new biennium cycle, which would be for 16 and 17, I believe.
Thank you.
So, would anyone like to make a motion to accept Resolution 1315?
I so move.
Second.
Mrs. Shawway?
Vote yes.
Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mr. Orndorff?
Yes.
I think you're going to find that asphalt prices this year are probably going to be very attractive. Because
I'm sorry, what did you say, very what?
they're going to be attractive.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the fact that your barrel price for the oil is way down. And of course, that's a byproduct of cracking. Cracking.
This is 1315.
So officially, we will be utilizing the draft resolution that was prepared for us?
That's
Right.
correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Michelle, this is you and Sandy, I guess. Maybe you all by yourself.
We did send out an RFP for video production services. We do have in our budget this year 2 different line items. One is for video production services, and the other is to take those, whatever we have produced into a video commercial, more than likely, and then to take that commercial and put it out on a media source, whether it be anything from the YouTube to cable television or up to the news media, Channel 3, Channel 5, Channel 8, whatever direction the board decides to take it, obviously with our assistance and guidance as well. We did set out the RFP. We had quite a bit of a response, which we were very grateful to receive back. And from that, we've narrowed it down to 2 that we would like to further pursue and communicate with. And I would like, at this point, because there is such a variance in cost, as you can see, we communicated with the state auditor to get their opinion on, it's a service. This is not reciprocal. Here's a product. This is a salt. The product is the same. You're going to go with the lowest quote no matter what. This is a service, and you're producing a commercial. We did take a look at every single commercial that was submitted, and they all ranged. The quality range, the type of commercial, the type of production range. We had some that produced music commercials music videos that had submitted, some that had really listened to what the RFP we had submitted out and what we were hoping to garner back in what we had in mind with nature and 15-second commercials and having the park do the speaking and submitted their best, what we considered their best work back and spoke to us. And we would like your opinion and at least one of your opinions to help us guide us in the next steps in this process as we move forward in deciding, number one, what we're going to do with this commercial. And if you're on the same thinking as we are in the communications department on where this commercial is going to end up, and what you're willing to spend, because the one that we might bring to you might not be the cheapest. And we did get, like I said, we did communicate with the state auditor and got a definite, you do not need to select. You do not need to select the lowest bid, and we don't have to. We don't have the stringent bidding requirements that some of the others do, so we could select any of the options, and I gave them some scenarios. So I feel comfortable with that, but I want you to take a look, and I kind of would like the board's assistance moving forward with this project.
Well, I had a couple of comments. In looking at your costs ranging from $5,400 to $72,000, I'm wondering if we need to more clearly define the scope, the goals, the audiences we want to achieve, really further define what we want out of this.
We did.
Okay.
We did.
I feel like we've got to be comparing apples to oranges. It cannot be the same.
We did, and see, that's why those were all set within the RFP, and we still got this really broad scope back. And so that's why we narrowed it down to 2 for you. And I could even add a third in there, you know, if you really wanted a third, I could add a third. But I would like for the communications team and myself and one of you to sit down and meet with these 2 companies and make sure that we're all on the same page before we decide moving forward where we're going to head. That's why initially we were going to bring to you a contract and say, let's move forward. But I don't think we're prepared to say that today. There's such a variance in price, and I think most everyone in this room knows that I'm usually the one that's up here saying lowest price, lowest price, lowest price. And I'm not prepared to say that today. And with something as important as this, and that's going to speak to a large quantity of people, this is our first commercial that we're ever going to be making. This is a great opportunity for us to really connect with the public in a way that is going to be remembered. I want to do it right. And I think we have a great opportunity here. And so I would really like to take the time to do it right. So if it's okay with you, I would like one of you to agree to meet with the communications department.
I'd be glad to do this.
And spend another month on this particular
Absolutely. Yeah.
before we
A little bit more information coming before the board.
To give the board a sense, is it fair to say that some of these companies are, perhaps their bid is more acclimated to their experience with major markets?
Yes. We had, just to run the gamut, I can tell you, we obviously, this RFP was available online for anybody and everybody to submit to. And also, you know, there's some certain companies that, you know, as you're out there and you're trying to find other companies, there was one company that kind of stuck out, and you'll send to a number of companies saying, you know, have you seen our RFP? Have you seen our RFP? And one of them was a major market company, and they did end up submitting to it. And we have people who've done work for Steris, for Pepperidge Farms, for local companies here only in Chardon, for major companies, for car dealers, some for only car dealers. There's such a variance in what was submitted to us that I think not only do we need to take a look at the work they submitted, but speak to the person, because I really think in this case, making sure that the product that we talk to them and say we want delivered is going to be the product that gets delivered back to us.
Lake Erie Video appears to be the only Geauga company. Are there others that aren't listed on the sheet?
Lake Erie Video is the only Geauga company. Fraser is out of Painesville, Concord, and so is the Cardamom is out of Concord to Painesville area.
Okay. Thank you. I'll be glad to meet
That'd be
with
great.
you and talk with you.
And bring us more information.
Yes.
Yeah, I would appreciate it.
Okay, so now we're...
Any comments, Mr. Ande, on this process?
No.
Thank you.
Because this is phase one, the bigger part of the phase, just so you're aware, I just want to follow real quick. This is the smaller part of the budget, is the actual production of this video. The larger part of the budget would be where this video goes. And the media market and selling this commercial, and that's what it ends up looking like, the production of this, is the much larger budget to the media market. So,
Thank
So
you.
what's that with the final market? Jeff?
Yes, we'll try.
Thank you. Okay, surplus property, Michelle, please.
you betcha. Surplus property, 2 items today, a Dell computer monitor and a Palm Pilot. Both of them are considered scrap. They will be destroyed upon approval today.
So moved.
Pilot.
In the bottom drawer.
Do we have a second? Mr. Gertz? Mrs. Shawway? Mr. Ormore?
Thank you, yes.
Okay, did any of you all have any questions on updates? Nothing? Anything about IT? As I read through, we're doing a lot with IT right now. Don, did you have anything you want to tell us in particular?
Well, the one proposal I had made was we were going to do a partial install of Office 2013, but it's come to light that Microsoft is moving aggressively toward a subscription-based product, which is Office 365, and the costs for that are significantly higher. So my proposal was to do a full install this year of Office 2013 or possibly 2016. That's supposed to be out at the last quarter of this year. With Office 213 or 216, you get a perpetual license. It's not subscription-based. You don't pay every year. And the support will run roughly 8 years. So if you do an annual cost of going with an Office suite, like 213, it's about $3,029 a year versus the subscription-based product, which is $12,000.
I'm not sure I'm ready to make a decision on that.
No, that seems like a no-brainer, but could you present to us at the April board meeting the monies done?
What's that? I'm
Sorry. At the April board meeting, can you present to me?
That's
Okay,
fine.
thanks.
That's fine.
Terrific. Okay, did any of you all have any other questions?
I have one item.
Okay.
An update. This is from Geauga County Payroll, which Geauga County Payroll is handled by the auditor's office for us. We had an employee that resigned, Carol Words, and I'll just go ahead and read the email because this is monies that will come out of our personnel budget. It says, it has come to our attention that 2014 no contributions were made to PRS for Carol Words. At this time, there will be ramifications on retirement issues. We have contacted PERS and are working with them to submit the necessary paperwork. We're waiting for PRS to direct us as to what the next step are to correct this issue. Michelle has provided an estimate. It looks like it'll be somewhere around $3,700. So just wanted to make you aware of that. We have to pay into PRS. How Geauga County Payroll missed that, I don't know. You have anything else to add, Michelle?
There will be interest probably added onto that as well. So in the range of $4,000.
There's really no controversy. It's just the fact that we owe this money to this lady for her PRS contribution.
Well, all I can do is I did send him an email and ask him how could this be this. It really isn't on our fault or our problem, but ultimately it's our fault.
I wonder how they missed it. If they sit with that every day, I don't understand it.
Well, the sad part is that we'll pay the interest on their mistake.
Is this former employee aware of this error?
I would imagine based on how it came about, she probably made them aware.
When she applied for retirement plans. Do we want to include her in correspondence so that she has some comfort level that we're trying to address and remedy this problem? I'd like to.
Has this ever happened before, Robin?
We had someone who was a ranger, and the auditor wasn't taking out the correct rate. They were taking out the regular employee rate. So this is the second time in my tenure that there's been an error.
I guess I'm just suggesting as a matter of courtesy, I'd like to make sure that this former employee is aware that we have been informed and that we're taking action to try and figure out what to do. Please.
Yes, I'll work with HR and we'll go ahead and generate a letter.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're to Commissioner's time. And I took the time to research. We were told last time that we met, which I believe was February 10th, that there was a violation of hunting and trapping laws at the Burton Wetlands Nature Preserve. Since that time, I've gotten copies of the Articles of Dedication and the Burton Wetlands Nature Preserve Management Plan that Mr. Gingrich, Phil Gingrich, wrote. And in doing so, I also spoke with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. And I've highlighted a few pieces and parts for everybody here. So it says the criteria for determining the nuisance status of a given game species as well as the management of controlled or public hunts shall be determined by the Park District. That is February 10th, 1999, signed by William Hudson. Then in the Articles of Dedication, it says when Geauga Park District determines that a game species poses a significant threat to the ecological or aesthetic condition of the preserve, they may request that the Chief of the Division of Natural Areas and Preserves, after consultation with the Ohio Natural Areas Council, allow selective or public hunting in Burton Wetlands State Nature Preserve for the express purpose of controlling and otherwise managing the species. So when I spoke with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, they told me that the key word here is they may rather than they shall. So that we do not have to contact them, but we may contact them. Then in addition to that, if we go back to the management plan, Phil Gingrich, resource technician, developed this plan after extensive consultation with other park personnel, scientists, and concerned citizens to truly act as stewards of the lands that's been entrusted to it. The Burton Nature Preserve was acquired in 1986, and it's acknowledged as Geauga Park District's most biologically sensitive holding. And that was stated by Mr. John O'Meara, Director, in April of 1992. Now, the land management policy clearly states, monitor park lands so that any negative influences can be controlled or eliminated. Then I thought it intriguing, land use guidelines. At least 80% of all park areas shall be maintained in a natural and undeveloped state. Just to reiterate, Geauga Park District has less than 3% of its holdings as developed property right now. Natural areas are to be used by special permit only or for functions under supervision of park staff. And I do not believe there are any violations to that. It goes on to say that the design of the facilities must consider the surrounding environment, must not exceed the carrying capacity of the areas. Grass mowing and recreation areas will be cited in each plan. The development shall not exceed 20% of the total area and shall be confined to an area where the least impact will occur to the environment. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Then in my conversations, just so that you all know, with Mr. Tom Arbor of the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Mr. Arbor told me that at this point, the ODNR is confident in the management that the Geauga Park District has been using for the Burton wetlands thus far, and they're definitely happy with Mr. Oros's management of them this year. So I guess my question would be, is there anything that when we come up for public comment that you all think has not been addressed yet as far as hunting on Burton Wetlands Nature Preserve? So that we can say that that question has been fully exhausted and that we've answered all those questions. Did you have any comments?
No.
You had comments, Bill?
Okay.
Are you asking if anybody has something now?
Or you
We're going to get there. I just want to double check. Did you have anything for commissioner's time? Did you have anything for commissioner's time? Okay, so at this time, I can't decide if that clock is working or not working. Yeah, it's 4:20. So we're going to go ahead and open up for 30 minutes discussion. Pardon me? 30 minutes, just a second, Ed. 30 minutes. If at that time we feel like there's still a lot yet that hasn't been exhausted, because I would really like to end the conversation of public hunting and trapping on the parks today, so that everybody understands it's a management of the parks, and that's what we're working towards. So let's go ahead and take, it's 4:20, stay till 5 o'clock, that gives 40 minutes. Okay? Yes.
Thank you.
Hi. Is it working? Who knows?
It's intermittent.
And that's pretty much the way I work too, so I understand. Several things. We'll get to the hunting and trapping in just a moment. I would like for the minutes to reflect that there was a meeting held here by 2 members of the Board of Commissioners. It was not publicly announced, and that part business was conducted. If the minutes reflect that, I would appreciate it.
Okay, that's not accurate, just so that we can clarify right away for the minutes. What was happened was we had a retention hearing, and Mr. Gerst asked if he could sit in and listen to the meeting as we left the doors open so that everyone else could also sit and listen. And as a Geauga County resident, he has a right to sit and listen. He was not allowed any input.
I would ask then that the minutes reflect your explanation also, please. Thank you. Very quickly, there used to be an audit committee that looked into the park finances and operations and so forth. It was disbanded approximately 14 months ago. That's an unusual situation for any organization. Every organization I've ever seen had an audit committee with outside auditors looking at finances and operations. I think that's an issue that should be looked into. If there's an answer of why it was disbanded, quick, I would appreciate it.
Where did you hear it was disbanded?
From one of the former members.
Maybe they were disbanded from the...
That's not what he said, but yeah. Is there an audit committee?
The audit committee, there's still an audit committee. It has not had a recent meeting, but there was never a disbanding of an audit committee.
What was the last meeting? Was it 14 months
It's
ago?
been about 14 months ago. We haven't reconvened since then.
Okay.
There was never a disbanding.
All right. Well, we'd be interested in knowing who's on that and when it's going to be again. As to the trapping issue, we seem to have missed the point here that it shall be determined by the park district. Yes, absolutely. We understand that. The point was that Natural Resources did not recommend any trapping on that and several other properties the park owns. And trapping was undertaken in those places anyway. That was the issue. You're violating your own standards, and it's sort of questionable. I talked to Mr. Barber also and to the chief also, and I understand a plan is being put together to meet with the folks here at the park and develop a new plan for the Burton wetlands, and we'll give more responsibility to the park to handle that sort of thing and recognize what they're doing. But my point is that the park procedures call for trapping to be done, hunting to be done with Natural Resources input, and Natural Resources input did not require trapping at that particular location or at several other locations where trapping was done.
Well, Mr. Buckles, I think Mrs. Shumway's letter answered your question.
No,
The responsibility to trap and so on is strictly up to the park.
and the park did not suggest these areas.
No. What happened was NRM didn't suggest, but a township called and said that we were flooding, or the beavers, the 2 beavers were flooding. Correct me if I'm wrong, John.
Not this particular year, and I guess I would ask Mr. Buckles that there are a number of departments in this organization. We could even go back to when Mr. Curtin was a director. I'll use our operations department, for example. Let's say they come over and they ask the interim director they want to buy 10 trucks. And the interim director says, well, that's not reasonable. We may only want to buy 5 trucks. There are a number of things that any department might recommend to myself and Board of Park Commissioners where we may do something different. So I'm not following the policies and procedures that were violated internally. There are a number of cases where we allow trapping, and we may in the future where an opportunity exists for people to utilize our property. You can call it a recreational opportunity or whatever the case may be in regards to hunting or trapping, but we don't follow every recommendation to the T from every department that presents something to me for the Board of Park Commissioners.
If there wasn't a complaint, why was trapping allowed in any of those places? None of the documents that you submitted to us indicate that there was a problem in any of those locations.
The case at Walter C. Best Preserve is that if you look at, we manage that lake under ODNR dam safety mandates, and they recommended that there be trapping there. One of the other locations that's historically been done at the Westwoods down along the Silver Creek restoration site, my bosses came to me at the time and said, listen, we spent thousands of dollars to plant trees, do reforestation. The beavers are girdling those trees. Would you please implement a trapping program there? So those are some of the reasons for the couple. What's that?
There's no documentation. No.
I don't know what to say to that. Historically, if my bosses had a meeting with me and asked me to do something and to put a trapping program in place, then we did it.
Well, you are the boss now, and there's no documentation of anybody coming to you and asking for it.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Can you give your name and your township when you go up, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
Did I fail to head buckles correct?
I know who you are.
Not Barb Herndon, Munson Township. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to welcome Mr. Orndorff to the Park Commission. I know that Mr. Orndorff, you've worked quite a long time in Geauga County. You've served on the Mental Health Board. You work in Geauga Juvenile Court and Probate Court. Years back, I worked with you on both those categories, and so I've always appreciated the work that you have done here in Geauga County. What I want to say, that I'm going to read from my notes so that I don't ramble and don't take more than my 3 minutes. But your background in child and family advocacy and mental health in Geauga County is very well respected, and we certainly hope to be able to respect your advocacy for the Geauga Park District as well. As you know, spending time in natural environments is good for our mental health and the mental health of our families, and to live in a community that respects that is also very good for community mental health. As you know, a large group of people have formed as a result of the bylaws change that took place in the park last year. We don't need to go through what that is, but if you need a crash course in that, we'd be glad to meet with you separately and talk about it. Our group is called Protect Geauga Parks, and we work to advocate for preservation, conservation, and protection of the parks. And we work to educate members of our community who have supported the parks in the past and would like to support them now. We have, I really appreciated the comment you made about the damage that people have done to the prairie flowers at Froring. So I'll take this opportunity to say damage has also been done at Froring when a soccer field was mowed into the meadow. That's done even far more damage than trampling the garden. So I'm just bringing that to your attention because you may not be aware of some of the changes that have taken place.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
There used to be folks who would bring their model airplanes there and use that sort of a big squarish area to fly their planes. And I was noticing that there's now a prohibition against any flying objects in our parks, which I'm not sure when that was implemented. But I have observed the soccer goals in that area now, which would certainly make it challenging for flying airplanes.
Right, and I'm not here to discuss the benefits of airplanes over soccer, but I do know that when we go to Froring Meadow, we now see a big chunk where there were bobolinks, where there are now potentially soccer players. I have never seen anyone playing soccer there, but it was mowed as a lesson. That's why.
Yeah, it's been mown for some time. I don't know how long.
I mean, we could take time to talk about that, but the idea of playing soccer is a little bit different in that you have audience and parents and chairs and balls flying into the meadow. But I don't want to talk about that.
Understood. I understand your point.
So, but I just wanted to bring up that we are concerned about the preservation of the natural habitats of the park. We're concerned about the definition of recreation being misleading, that recreation for me might be going with my binoculars and sitting on a bench and looking at a bird, and recreation for somebody else might be using a motorized vehicle such as a all-terrain vehicle, just for example, I'm just using it, or a snowmobile. So I think we have a lot of discussion to have, to continue to have, to make sure that the recreation that's allowed in the parks goes along with the goals of preservation and protection. We're advocating for good leadership in the parks. I really appreciate how you have today, throughout the meeting, in a gentle voice tone, been able to talk about the employee who may not have gotten her retirement, been able to ask about, let's check into that. And I think those of us in the audience also appreciate not being reprimanded if we're asking a question and trying to get an honest answer. I will also just take the opportunity to say I do think it's a little bit unusual that even though Mr. Shumway is probably very, very good at doing an investigation, to investigate yourself over a hunting and trapping issue is a little bit suspect. All the boards I sit on, if an investigation is needed, somebody else comes in to do that investigation.
Well, by the way, Ms. Shumway, with regard to these documents that she was discussing earlier, I mean, we can certainly make these available for review so that everyone has access to the same information about this issue of whether there should have been permission granted by the Division of Natural Areas and Preserves. But her point was only that after she made inquiry, that it appeared to her as if that was an opportunity that the Park District could utilize if it wanted to seek the advice and guidance, but that it's not mandatory. But I don't pretend to be the last word on this
And I
issue.
did not conduct the investigation. I'm just saying that if I serve also on several boards, and if a question comes up as serious as possible violations of hunting and trapping rules, it usually is an outside source that does an investigation. So I'm just bringing that up.
Are you suggesting who should have done?
I think there probably are some people in the audience that could make that suggestion. I'm pointing that out because I have the podium right now.
All right.
I'm going to keep going. I know I'm off by 3 minutes, but I would like to say...
I interrupted you, so...
It's okay. I appreciate
Please.
that. It would be not appropriate for me to miss saying that there are concerns about your position working in juvenile and probate court. As Mrs. Shumway, I think, has also had some connection with juvenile and probate court. I'm really hoping that you're able to act as an independent advocate for the Park District, avoiding any political or personal involvements that may hinder your independence. I know that you have an interest in conservation, and I really hope that you're able to help the Park District kind of pull itself together and not be an embarrassment as it has been for the last 6 to 8 months. So I want the publicity in the paper to be positive, not negative. I would also like there to be strong thought about going back to protection, conservation, and preservation. I think those were 3 statements in the original mission statement and the original bylaws that were important, and the substitution of the word connection, whereas there's nothing wrong with connection, it should not have taken the place of preservation. I sit looking at the tablecloths and I see that preservation has been taken out. I could go on and on, but I think other people would probably like that 3 minutes. So I do want to again welcome you. I hope that you're able to work well with your colleagues there, and I appreciate your comments. If you want to have further conversation with myself or with any other members of Protect Travel Parks, we'll be able to do that.
Ma'am, what was your name?
Barbara Cardington.
Sure.
Partington. Partington. Partington.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Foster, Thomas Foster. Munson Township, 11532 Lakeview Road, part of the Bass Lake community. And I'm here representing the Bass Lake Club. I'm the president of the trustees. And we've had a lot of yelling, screaming, and fire down there. And I thought perhaps I could offer a flower to you guys and say, let's not have an argument about this whole issue with the change of the park. Bass Lake community has been around since before all of us were born, early 20th century. And we've always, well, almost all, okay. And it's always been a community park. It's, there's been beaches there, and it's been a wonderful little community park. And in a sense, it's somewhat different than other parks within the Geauga Park District, as this has always been a community park, and historically, and then geographically, it's a community park. Effectively, you can't get there from here. If you don't know that it exists, you're going to miss it.
That's true.
It's and as part of the Bass Lake Club, we sort of look after the place. This is our community. There'll be times when I'm not the only one that does this. There are other Bass Lake Club members here. There's trash though, we pick it up. I walk the dogs every morning, go down to the lake, make sure that everything's fine. We look after the place. And in exchange for that, we had an agreement about, I think it was started 12 years ago maybe, where we sort of look after it. It's been, in our family, as it were, for almost 100 years. And you give us some boat racks put up. And, kind of first dibs on the lodge and little things like this in exchange for us giving up the lodge and selling it and so on and so forth. Well, that contract, that agreement, expires shortly. And I would ask
May I ask what when you say shortly, what's our time frame?
April.
I believe the 1st of April. April Fool's Day. So, I'd ask if you could review that and sign it, please. It's been around for a dozen or more years, and we've been a community park for nearly 100 years, and it would be nice to keep that feeling.
Is there an existing written agreement?
There is. Would you like a copy?
Yes. Do we have this?
Yes,
We did. All right.
Here. I've got it. It's on both sides. I haven't figured out my new printer yet.
Mr. Andre, have you seen this already?
No. I had to consult it when we had the issue about the boat, but I have not seen it in its entirety.
He gave you 2 copies, so.
Was this renewed yearly?
No, 5 years. It's 5 years. 5 years. Yeah. The other thing, being a small community, and this is going to, I don't mean offense here, but this is delicate. I remember walking the dogs one morning, and I don't do it when it's 4 below, but and all of a sudden there's all of this recreational equipment there, and that's kind of cool. And then my wife pointed out to me, because she says the only taste I have is in my mouth, that even I could realize that the baseball backstop was ugly. When you stand in front of the lake and you look out over this lake, and it's gorgeous, the bald eagle flying, the herons, and there is a baseball backstop, isn't it? I mean, even I can tell it. I mean, there's no problem with the rest of the site, but could you please take that down? You don't need that. And nobody uses it. People use the bocce court, sand baseball, girls bikinis, that's great, but not the baseball. Tetherball, fine. Kids play with that all the time. Lodge is beautifully kept up. Boat, you said you made us up another boat rack this year at our request. Thank you. With 6 more boats. What a group. We've been fighting over who gets boat racks amongst ourselves. Now we have 6 more spots to put up canoes. What a great thing. Thank you. The issue with the 3 acres that EPA wants, I'll be willing to go down to Columbus and talk to these people. I've got a few minor contacts down there, so if we can get them to back off a little bit on that and say, hey, no harm, no foul. Just let it, it works. Don't fix it. If you would like, I'd be happy to do that.
Do we have your contact in? Do we have your contact?
I do.
All right.
John, do you think that?
No, what Mr. Foster is referring to with the 3 acres is with the addition of the recreational amenities that the board asked to see last year. We impacted a maximum of 3 acres, and they were asking that we enroll an additional 3 acres in what they call an environmental covenant. It's like a conservation easement. So that is one of the reasons we don't have an agreement in place with the Bass Lake community. Mrs. Shumway and I have been in discussions about how that may affect their Bass Lake community agreement. So.
The area that you're talking about has always been mowed. Kids play soccer, and if someone like myself or Joe Sweet or some of the other people go down to Columbus, make a road trip, sit down with these guys, and I think that the EPA's letter to you was not an edict, but it was an initial, this is what we want, and it's a beginning of a discussion.
That's correct.
And a little input, maybe some photographs, I think would be, I think it'd shut them right up. And I think if that baseball backstop went away, the pictures would look better.
So just to clarify, go ahead, Jeff.
Is it legally permissible for us to extend this agreement by motion today for a period of 90 days while we get these things sorted out?
I would not have a problem with that, Jeff.
Well, that's my motion, that we extend the existing Bass Lake Club agreement as approved by the Fire Board of Commissioners.
Sorry about the printing.
Oh, that's okay. For a period of 90 days from its expiration, so that we can address these issues raised by Mr. Foster.
I've seen that. I don't know that Bill has ever seen that. You have?
No, I have not.
Yeah, he has not, so he doesn't know what he's voting on. So,
Well, so all we're really doing is all I'm proposing is that we extend this.
For a minute.
Yeah, this is.
He's got it now.
It looks like it was entered into on April 13th. So if 2010.
Not April Fool's Day.
Yes, April 13th. So if we said 90 days past that, that would give us May, June, like into July
13th
to get this. 90 days might not be the 13th of July because April 30th. But at any rate, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm just saying that we just need some time to digest what you're asking and to sort out what should be done. Is that satisfactory to you?
Oh, I'm delighted. Sure.
So that's my motion.
I'll second your motion.
Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mr. Shumway?
Yes.
Mr. Warndorf? Yes. Thank you.
I just want to clarify.
Can I ask you one
Yeah,
more
go
question?
ahead.
I'm sorry. Is there anything else that you are specifically requesting besides the removal of the baseball backstop?
Well, the baseball backstop is an aesthetic issue.
Yes, but
But everything else, everything else is great. I mean, what a beautiful park. What a wonderful place to raise kids. What a great place to walk my dog. Have a canoe and go out there. And in the morning, it's quiet. I mean, this is like heaven. You guys have done a wonderful, wonderful job in maintaining that park. Nicely done. Until the backstop came up.
I did have a question. When I went down there to look at it, I just am wondering, with this renewed contract, what the park district might be able to do. There's no way I could schlep some of those boats from where they're stored down to the lake by myself. How do you all do that?
Well, it's very, very easy. You have sons. The last time I took the boat out, my son was home on leave. I said, let's go out and take the canoe.
Okay.
And it's a heavy old canoe.
Yeah.
And out we went. And he decided it was a race. I'm sitting in the back, and he decided, oh, no, I'm a naval officer. I'm going to go for a race. It's fun. It is just play. It is just wonderful. And we got bald eagles there. One landed in my front yard. How many people in this country have a bald eagle land in their front yard? This is an amazing park. And we don't disagree. Amazing.
We do not disagree.
It is just, and everyone's welcome, even though it is in fact a community park. Certainly everybody's welcome, although no one knows about it. Oh my goodness, what a great place! Just again, there was this all of a sudden we get all this ugliness to the ride.
Does staff have any questions of Mr. Foster while he's here with us today?
I'm sorry.
Do we have any questions of Mr. Foster while he's here?
No, him and I have talked. We were just simply waiting to put it in place, renew it, based on discussions we've had about this EPA environmental comment. That's all right, great. Thank you. We can extend it on.
Thank you,
Mr. Foster. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got time.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Webb. I'm also a resident of Munson Township in the Bass Lake neighborhood. I'm one of Tom's neighbors. And I would like to thank him and this week for their presentation today. And I'd like to ask you to consider not just the baseball backstop that Tom mentioned, but a couple of the other amenities too. The soccer backstop is right smack at the lake's edge. So you really pretty much can't look at the lake. It's there, Tom. Ask your wife. Okay. You pretty much can't look at the lake without seeing one soccer match, just one. You can't really play a game with that. So if you could either move it to a more discreet location or remove it. And the other thing I'd like you to consider really is that sand volleyball court, which in my experience, being down there with my dogs too, it's used mostly by the geese. The geese use it as a litter box. I don't even know if that makes it, and I've also seen moms with their little kids want to use it like a big sandbox. So the geese excrement and little kids playing in the sand, I don't know if that's a good combination. Plus, there's a light there. One of the neighbors has told me when I talked with her that she believes it's attracting some young people in the summer and maybe not in the healthiest of ways. She's found beer cans that she didn't find before. And there's a lake there, and there are boats stored, and it might be an invitation to some kind of disaster. So if you would think about removing, please, or relocating that soccer net, and give some thought to that sand volleyball net if it's really safe and appropriate there. And I thank you for that consideration.
Do you object to there being a volleyball court there, or do you just object to the sand?
You know what? It's a nature preserve, so I object to there being a volleyball court there. I think there are more appropriate places, such as municipal parks.
So even if it was grass, you would still find it objectionable?
Yes, but I wouldn't protest it as much. I would just make that case that it's a nature preserve, and I don't think that kind of recreation is appropriate there. But the sand is really
too much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Geauga, and I'm from Bainbridge, and I've lived in Geauga County for 25 years. I had to drive over 40 minutes to get to this meeting, and I really would like it if you would consider going back to the old schedule and taking all of the Geauga County residents and keeping them in mind, and not making these meetings at the northernmost park that exists. That the Westwoods is centrally located, and that just makes sense. Because it doesn't eliminate people that don't want to invest all of that driving time.
I would agree with you, Marcia, that I got shot down. It's much closer for me, it was.
I mean, the board meetings are for the people. They're not for convenience for the board members. They're for the taxpaying residents of Geauga County.
Ma'am, we've already voted on the schedule for the year.
I'm just saying my opinion.
Mr. Goodman, is there another issue?
Yes.
that
The minutes.
I'm sorry.
The board meeting minutes. When the board meeting minutes are not made public until after the next board meeting when they're approved, how is the public supposed to have any type of input if they're unaware of these things, of like proposed changes to the bylaws, like really important things that by the time they find out about it, it's already been presented to the board and voted on. I don't think that's right.
Dave, you want to address that?
Well, I mean, I can only say that's the typical practice of virtually every political subdivision that I'm aware of, that the minutes of the last meeting get approved at that meeting. There may be other ways, if drafts are produced, that a public records request would produce the draft of it. But I don't believe that we're in the practice of creating drafts here. Anna prepares the minutes and they get circulated at the next meeting or just prior to the next meeting. I'm not sure what the timing is. But it's nothing unusual the way the Park District is doing it.
I just don't feel that it's reasonable as far as the amount of time, and it totally eliminates public input. As far as the time of the meetings at 3:30, you're virtually eliminating anybody that works first shift, second shift, or third shift. Again, how is the public supposed to have any input if these meetings are in the farthest corner of Geauga County at a time when anybody that works cannot attend?
The park board meetings were sent back to the time that they were previous to myself coming on the board.
Well, I would
That's the history of the way it always was previous to last year.
Do you know why we hold them here? You know the reason? The reason is the fact that the staff who has to be in these meetings would have to travel to Westwood. This is not cost effective. So for the little inconvenience we have by holding them at 3:30 here, we felt that perhaps if you want to get them on the internet, if we can afford that, to present them to you. But I don't see any reason for changing. I understand your concern because you're from Bainbridge.
It would be very inconvenient for you to drive, but you're not putting any consideration into it.
Well, not only me, but all these staff members would have to drive there too. And by being here in their own office, they probably don't run on any overtime. Is that pretty much it, John?
Yeah, ultimately, it's the decision of the park board, what days of the week, the times, the locations, it's up to the park board. And it was changed back to the way they've always been. And that's the second Tuesday of the month at 3:30 at the Myers Center.
And did they used to alternate at Westwood?
For 1 year, they did that.
That was...
Yeah, they did that in 2014. Yes.
Okay. My second concern is the survey. And that is the fact that non-residents, non-taxpayers can go and put their input in. And supposedly the survey people will know where these results are coming from
and know who's from in county and out of county. But I moved to Geauga County because I wanted green space. I wanted wildlife and greenery. I didn't want backstops and playgrounds. Okay? And I don't think that people that live in Geauga County or any other county should have any input as to what goes on in our parks. Because they're not paying the taxes. We are. It should be our parks for the taxpayers to decide. And it's just upsetting to me that people that live outside the county have the ability to have any type of influence on the parks. I don't think it's right.
Excuse me, Matt. The surveys ask for your zip code. So what you're telling me is there are people from outside the county that are lying and being deceitful in filling out their surveys and providing a zip code in Geauga County?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you can live in another state and take the survey. You can live in another country and take the survey.
But you wouldn't have the correct zip code.
The survey, we have every township listed. We also have, as an option, outside of the county. And we also ask for zip codes. I think she's saying just the fact that we're allowing people outside the county to take it. Originally, when the strategic plan was talked about, which I know was the previous board, the original proposal, since we do have users that come to our programs and our parks from outside the county, they did want to get feedback from residents and non-residents.
They're not paying taxes. I don't have any input in their part.
When we put together the survey and it was reviewed, nobody ever said that we wanted to limit it to just county residents. So,
are you putting the comments that you get from
non-county? The outside firm who's analyzing everything, they are separating into, because we're also looking at the county, they're comparing demographics because Bainbridge, for example, has a higher population rate than other parts of the county. So when they look at the results, they're also looking at, are we getting an even sampling throughout the county, or are we getting an abnormal amount maybe from, one portion of the county for some reason. So that's all part of what they're analyzing. Surveys from outside the county are looked at, separately too.
I find this, it just kind of interesting because Judge Rendell, when Protect Geauga Parks presented to him a petition with thousands of signatures, he discounted it, saying, they don't live in Geauga County or they're underage or whatever, but he's going to take the results of the survey, including the opinions of people who live outside of our county.
But just because we hear their opinions, it doesn't mean we're acting.
And I was going to say, the survey, again, is one small piece of developing long-term plans. It also relates to what we do internally, talking to the different departments. The survey is a way to get broad feedback from a larger group. It's one piece of the whole planning process. It's not the end-all, be-all of everything.
And my last comment would be, I am concerned about the balance of the board and the leverage that Judge Rendell has over two of the three. I hope you can think independently and not let your involvement with Judge Rendell affect your decisions.
The only thing I can tell you is, Marcia, I'm on my second husband. My first one's deceased, and both of them would tell you that they couldn't make me do anything, and there's no way Tim Grendell's going to.
Thank you.
This gentleman here in the black coat.
I'm Frank Jacobson from South Russell. I agree with a lot of what you just said. And did I hear correctly, because the microphones aren't working, we're spending $99,000 on a playground in $99,000 on a playground. One playground we just put up, the residents are asking us to take it down. And who is going to take children all the way out to Headwaters to play on a turtle. Unbelievable.
Thank you. There's a gentleman standing in the back.
No.
Here.
No?
Not here. Not tonight. You're not using that as your bully pulpit today, so go back.
Really?
I don't want him. All he does is nip.
Well, I
Now,
think,
John, I've known you. I know you write derogatory articles in the paper against this board. We don't need it.
I have a right to speak my mind. We don't have to say that. More than I leave, because I think you need to go through
no,
that.
I'm just going to ask that we stick to park board business. That's all I'm going to ask us at the podium.
Mr. Arnold, I'd like to welcome you here, and I do wish you well. I've heard some good things about you, and I know you've been a volunteer for the parks in the past, and I think that's good, and I'm hoping that means you have an interest in natural areas, and I think it does mean that.
Thank you.
And I'd like to ask that you enter this into the minutes of the meeting. I don't have time to read it off. I'm going to be cut off probably before I finish it. So I do have a couple comments about traffic. That's something of interest that we've had. One thing that Ed mentioned about Tom Arbor meeting with John Oros. I talked with Tom Arbor after that meeting. I asked him about his discussion with John Oros. I asked him, did you ask John what problems there was at Burton Wetlands regarding the animals? And he didn't even ask. He couldn't tell. He said no. He didn't ask him. You would think that would be a basic question. He would ask what was the problem there. So that doesn't give me a great deal of confidence in the state people. But anyway, Mary Ruth, regarding your use of the word "may," I believe that may well have been incorrectly used there, because from the information we had regarding rules, the state's rules for state natural areas, hunting and trapping are prohibited there. That's a given. And if you want to exceed that, then you may consult with the Natural Resources to do that.
Okay.
If you decide that you don't want to do that, you still have to comply with no hunting and no trapping there. That's my understanding.
Okay, well, we're going to have to agree to disagree with the understanding, because ODNR explained it to me differently.
All right. Regarding, we started this looking into trapping because of a couple of people who lived near the rookery they told us that the beaver had been trapped out of there completely. We thought that was pretty inappropriate, if indeed that has happened. And I still don't know for sure or not. That's why I heard someone say that the golf course were complaining about it. I talked to the manager of the golf course. He said he had no complaints about beaver there. So we're still wondering about what's going on there. But we've been looking into other areas. One area is the Pine Brook Preserve. I thought it was rather curious. We obtained a lot of freedom of information requests from the park, and I noticed there were no permits issued for no trapping permits issued for Pine Brook. Then it occurred to me that Pine Brook was purchased 5 or 6 years ago. I did talk with Bob McCullough at the time, and he told me that in order to acquire that property, they made an agreement with the owner that they would allow them to trap there. But he said it wasn't open-ended. They had to work with the park, and they also had a wetlands mitigation fund. A lot of the funding, my understanding, that Bob said came from a wetlands organization, and they had to comply with their requirements also. So one thing that I understand, one of the rangers, I understand, said that the rangers aren't even allowed into Pine Brook to see what's going on there. That the rangers are the ones who issue the permits. Is that true? Are the rangers forbidden to go into Pine Brook?
I would have to look at the mansion.
You mean you don't know, John? Have they ever been in there this year? Is that part of their routine area to patrol? I mean,
The park is, we paid $2 million or something like that for that property. You don't know whether they're allowed to patrol or go into that area. Who is?
John, thank you. I did not write the management agreement.
Yeah.
At that time, the deputy director wrote the management agreement. I don't know offhand if the Rangers can go in there or not.
You're the boss. You know.
John told you he doesn't know.
Okay. Is anybody? Can you tell me? Is anybody allowed to go in there? Say National Resource Management, since they're part of keeping an eye on what's going on. Do they have to ask you to go in there, or could they? You honestly don't know there either with what's going on.
John, please.
Okay.
Please. Trying to answer your question.
Well, you haven't answered it.
Well, he said that he doesn't know, so let's let him.
In regards to the Rangers, I don't know. I know we are afforded interpretive programs out there.
Right. Okay, so
the management agreement is a public document.
We've got a $2 million that the taxpayer paid for that, and trapping and hunting is going on there. We have no idea whether anybody's complying with any regulations or not. They could be trapping anything they want. The trapping permits that have been issued have no species listed on there. Isn't that rather absurd? Not even the list of the species that are allowed to be trapped, or the number of species, or whatever. That seems a bit absurd to me.
John,
you're where the buck stops, John. You know what I mean?
John, continue to cut me off.
Is my 3 minutes up?
Yes.
Probably a long time ago, right?
The lady in the blue hat.
Joey Kecko.
Joey Kecko?
Come on.
I didn't know if you wanted to save time.
No.
Thank you for scampering.
It's good for me. My name is Joy Kecko. I'm from Bainbridge Township. I live in Geauga County. My one question, how much did the turtle cost?
The turtle is a part of an entire playground set. The turtle didn't come separately.
We don't have a breakdown.
So we don't have a breakdown of the exact cost of the turtle.
Okay, can you tell me how much the entire project was?
Well, the entire
Michelle, can you help us out?
playground.
The entire playground.
Was $99,900. $750.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Plaid shirt. Please. Yes, sir.
I'm very shy, so I don't speak well in front of people.
Doing well so far.
I am Phil Gingrich from Middlefield, and I am the one responsible for writing up almost all the management plans for Geauga Park District but I've been retired about 12 years now. And I think that it was by Mary Ruth's description of me, or my management plan, that it's a little bit misinterpreted. And I know John very well. I hired John to work for me, and we actually did some of our own trapping, but it was for the nuisance animals only. And
Were beavers considered nuisance animals?
They were, but I have to say that there was only one. It's been a long time, so my memory's not as sharp as it used to be. It's like when you get over 50, you learn something new every day, but you forget 5 other things. But anyway, there was instances where we hired nuisance trappers for beaver I can't remember the name of the road, but for Bass Lake area, and I think that might have been the only place. But John and I did our nuisance trapping. for muskrat at other areas that were deemed necessary by us, or by me, I should say.
Did you have any involvement with muskrat trapping at the lake there at Vestan? On that big dam? Or was that after you retired?
I don't really, honestly, I don't remember. John, did we? Yeah, I honestly don't remember that. But I don't think so. I remember nuisance trapping at for muskrat at Beartown. So to control the beaver. But I don't remember the other one, or the other places. However, the point I'm trying to make is that it had to be deemed totally necessary before we trapped. And
by the board or by the staff?
By staff. Well, actually, the Army Corps of Engineers, because there's rules that are that you have to manage your dams, and muskrat and beaver can destroy those. However, I did, or managed so many places to. Probably 3 minutes. But there's so many places to control the beaver population or the flooding with other structures before we trapped them. I mean, we got very creative in doing different piping systems and agri-drains and stuff to control the flooding so they were not a problem. And so we avoided trapping whenever possible. However, at Burton Wetlands, there was some problems, and actually I think John probably helped me on this, or some of my seasonals helped me on this, to come up with very creative devices so that the road would not flood, so that we did not have to trap the beaver, because we felt, or I felt, and feel that they're a very important part of our ecosystem. And so I guess my whole point is here, you only trap when you absolutely have to, and there has to be proof that there is structural damage to infrastructure or the ecosystem. And I just don't, I guess I don't, forgive me, John, but I really am opposed to trapping of Burton Wetlands, because I have not
unless
seen...
Unless it does one of those two things.
Pardon?
Unless it does one of the two things that you've indicated.
Right, but I still visit the property on a almost a daily basis. So I just, and I'm also the one that created the deer management, not deer management, but the research on deer management, and we put deer exclosures up in a lot of parks to see if there was actually a deer browse problem. And those structures still exist in most of those parks. And I'm sure there's some deer management needed in some of those, but there is none at Burton Wetlands. So I don't know how it could be determined that there was a problem there without having the research first.
I have one question for you, Phil. You say you go to Burton Wetlands every day. Are you going back in the natural areas?
I'm very familiar with them, and I skirt them, but you cannot get back in there this time of year.
Well, because I'll be honest with you, just because you worked for the parks, you still have to get a special use permit to go back there, because anyone going back there affects the. I can't go back there. I don't know. The whole idea is absolutely not. There'd be no reason for me to go back there if it's a natural preserve area, except for the people for the parks without the special use permit. That's the whole concept of the preserve.
So then why can you trap in there?
I'm not in there trapping in there. And let's be honest, of the trapping that was the trapping awarded this year for Burton Wetlands, he did not trap at all, correct?
He didn't, but the permit did exist, and I admitted that was an oversight. And let me just provide some perspective on trapping in general, and then we're well over our time. When Phil retired and I became natural resource manager, at that time my bosses, Tom Curtin and Keith McClintock, and instead of utilizing some of the methods that Phil and I utilized, like piping and some of the devices to control water levels, they requested we take a different approach, and that approach was population control through trapping. So that's what we did. As far as the permit being issued at Burton Wetlands this year, it was an oversight. We had requested in writing to deer hunt at Burton Wetlands through Division of Natural Areas and Preserves, and they readily approved it, both verbally and in writing, because they were doing population control for deer and a number of their other state nature preserves. So, my point being is trapping and hunting is a method for controlling populations. It always has been. This board may approve in the future going forward. This is part of allowing our constituents, our park users, our park patrons to utilize the parks for a recreational opportunity that they enjoy. It may not be an opportunity that you enjoy, but it may be one that some of our residents enjoy. So, that's the other part of it.
If you recall, back in the late 90s, we had a director here who was fired because of deer hunting in Burton Wetlands. And I think, he worked here. It's very interesting that he actually signed the dedication of Burton Wetlands, that he was caught deer hunting in Burton Wetlands. And now it's happening. I just think that there has to be more studies done to prove that it's necessary. And I have not seen that at Burton Wetlands, and I visit every park constantly. And I just want to set the record straight, because you brought up my name 2 board meetings in a row, and I have done most of the management plans in this park. And I'm sorry I'm not a public speaker, but I just want to set the record straight that there's a lot more thought that goes into it.
I think there's a gentleman in the back. And then this is it, and then we'll go into executive session.
Take 1 minute. That's what we do. My name is Joe Sweet. I'm a Munson Township resident, live in the Bass Lake community.
I used to be the president of the trustees of the Bass Lake Community. Now I'm just a resident. But speaking on behalf of my family, we love what you guys have done with the playground. I have 6 kids, and we know a couple other families with kids as well in the community, and they really enjoy it. Now, granted, Captain, we don't use it every day. And my daughter does play in the volleyball court in the sand. She's 3.5 years old, which is kind of gross. If she's putting in these poop, that's a good thought. And so it's something to definitely consider. But my opinion differs a little bit from Tom's. The backstop, we use it. We love it for baseball and softball. So that's we have a very passionate group in our neighborhood. But I just want to speak on behalf of my family and a couple others that have kids that have said, hey, Joe, say some good words about the equipment because we're enjoying it. So that's just my take, and I appreciate all the passion that everyone in the room has and the work you guys are doing, and we love our parks. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I think
We do?
Yeah.
We have one more?
Wait a minute. I hate to make one person not be able to speak. I know we're half an hour.
I will be quick.
That's okay.
My name is Stan Pekas. I live in Newbury. Been a resident of Geauga County since 1990. Just wondering why the SAP's Rising is only 2 Sundays this week, where this year it's always been 3 or 4. And why, with all the emphasis on recreation, there were no naturalist-guided cross-country ski events this year.
There were.
Really missed the skis, especially the full moon skis. They used to be very well attended, and there were definitely none scheduled. They had one introduction to cross-country skiing for, beginners or whatever. That was the only program I saw.
I can speak to the SAP's Horizon. It was something we had initially talked about 3 and then took it back to 2 based on just programming and where we wanted to be. And it was 2, 3, 2, and initially, ultimately, I made the decision. I said, let's take it back to 2. And I think we may have made the right decision. I hope we made the right decision based on the fact that, we don't have the staff out there right now.
The weather backs you up.
I'm hoping the weather backed me up this year. 2 just because we made this decision to pack as much as we can into the 2. We brought back the horse-drawn wagons this year. And so that's going to be something new. And for the 2 weekends, we added that in. That's an additional cost. So I tried to offset a little bit of that cost. We took it back to 2 weekends. We'll see how it works. If our numbers are there and we need to add that 3rd weekend back in, we said we're going to try it out in 2 and see how we do, and then we'll reevaluate for next year. That's how we got to 2. It's a trial basis this year. As far as the cross-country skis, I'll have to check into that, to be honest with you. I wasn't aware that we didn't have any. I know that we really were pushing the snowshoes probably a little more than the cross-country.
At the expense of the cross-country ski.
Yeah, cross-country ski.
So we have to balance that next year, far better.
Yeah, so it
Good
might have
point.
been, if we did have one, it might have been cut because of the weather, but I'll have to get your information and get back to you on that, because I didn't know that we had cut them completely out.
Will you speak to her and give her your contact information? Sure.
Yeah, that may have been an oversight and something that I'll have to take into consideration and don't miss. But yeah, I know we were thinking those snowshoes, so that could have been an oversight.
Thank you.
I'll make sure.
Those were the only 2 things I was going to comment on, but as I was sitting here for the meeting today, I am just wondering how many other private agreements there are between the park district and the little groups with their neighborhood parks, or preserves where there's private.
Are there any others?
And everything.
Yes.
Okay. So those are the only 2.
We're in the process of doing, and as receptionists are doing an exhaustive review of files to see what different agreements are in place. Some of them are conservation easements. Some of them are as simple as agreements with the Bass Lakes Homeowners Association. So we're in the process of doing that.
But is this like the only community one that we have, as far as we know at this moment in time?
I don't know of any with the community.
Does that answer your question? We're not aware of any other community agreement? There are other
Find out before the next board meeting?
Yeah, part of the challenge. As far as I know, we own community agreement.
And
And
finally,
it came with the original property purchase as an agreement, and it's just been extended.
thank you. And finally, as I see these nice pieces of paper sitting around, mostly unused, that are going to now go into the recycling bin, hopefully, it would seem that they could maybe be available in one pile for people that come in. If they want them, they can take them, rather than have them for 100 chairs and 50 don't get used. Thank you very much.
Thanks, that was my okay, I think we're ready to go to executive session to discuss
Personal land acquisition.
is Mike still? Personnel and land acquisition, in case those of you that didn't hear me. Executive session for personnel and land acquisition.
Coming back in for a vote.
Thank you.
Mrs. Shumway?
Second. Yes? Vote yes.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Orndorff?
Yes.
Are you serious? Yeah.